You should break down problems. If you don't know about something, don't tell them. Your date cutoff is this, today's date is this. It's a lot of really useful context for how can you answer a question well.
And Anthropic publishes their system
Yes,
prompt.
which I think is great. And there's a lot of research that goes into this. And one of your previous guests, Amanda Askell, is like probably the most knowledgeable person, that at least in the combination of execution and sharing. She's the person that should talk about system prompts and character of models.
Yeah, and then people should read these system prompts because you're like trying to nudge, sometimes through extreme politeness, the model to be a certain way.
And you could use this for bad things. I mean, we've done tests, which is, what if I tell the model to be a dumb model? Like, which evaluation scores go down? And it's like, we'll have this behavior where it could sometimes like say, oh, I'm supposed to be dumb. And sometimes it's like, it doesn't affect like math abilities as much, but something like if you're trying, it's just the quality of a human judgment would drop to the floor. Let's go back to post-training, specifically RLHF around Llama 2 it was too much safety prioritization was baked into the model weights. This makes you refuse things in a really annoying way for users. It's not great. It caused a lot of like awareness to be attached to RLHF that it makes the models dumb.
And it stigmatized the word.
It did in AI culture. And as the techniques have evolved, that's no longer the case, where all of these labs have very fine-grained control over what they get out of the models through techniques like RLHF.
Although different labs are definitely different levels. Like on one end of the spectrum is Google, and then like maybe OpenAI does less and Anthropic does less. And then like on the other end of the spectrum is like XAI, but they all have different forms of RLHF trying to make them a certain way.
And the important thing to say is that no matter how you want the model to behave, these RLHF and preference tuning techniques also improve performance. So on things like math evals and code evals, there is something innate to these, what is called contrastive loss functions. We could start to get into RL here. We don't really need to, but RLHF also boosts performance on anything from a chat task to a math problem to a code problem. So it is becoming a much more useful tool to these labs. So this kind of takes us through the arc of, we've talked about pre-training, hard to get rid of things. We've talked about post-training and how post-training, if you can mess it up. It's a complex, multifaceted optimization with 10 to 100 person teams converging on one artifact. It's really easy to not do it perfectly. And then there's the third case, which is what we talked about Gemini. The thing that was about Gemini is this was a served product where Google has their internal model weights that have done all these processes that we talked about. And in the served product, what came out after this was that they had a prompt that they were rewriting user queries to boost diversity or something. And this just made it, the outputs were just blatantly wrong. It was some sort of organizational failure that had this prompt in that position. And I think Google executives probably have owned this. I don't pay that attention, that detail, but it was just a mess up in execution that led to this ridiculous thing. But at the system level, the model weights might have been fine.
So at the very end of the pipeline, there was a rewriting
to something like a system prompt. It was like the system prompt, or what is called in industry is like you rewrite prompts. So especially for image models, if you're using DALL-E or ChatGPT can generate you an image, you'll say, draw me a beautiful car. Mm-hmm. With these leading image models, they benefit from highly descriptive prompts. So what would happen is if you do that on ChatGPT, a language model behind the scenes will rewrite the prompt, say, make this more descriptive, and then that is passed to the image model. So prompt rewriting is something that is used at multiple levels of industry, and it's used effectively for image models. And the Gemini example is just a failed execution.
Big philosophical question here with the RLHF. To generalize, where is human input, human in the loop, human data most useful at the current stage?
For the past few years, the highest cost human data has been in these preferences, which is comparing, I would say, highest cost and highest total usage. So a lot of money has gone to these pairwise comparisons where you have two model outputs and a human is comparing between the two of them. In earlier years, there was a lot of this instruction tuning data. So creating highly specific examples to something like a Reddit question to a domain that you care about.